My name is Dr. Maya Byfield. My business is The Phenomenal STEMist. I'm so excited to be here in Orange County because it's where I live. I live in Apopka, Florida. And I decided to make this business because I saw a need for underrepresented students to be successful in STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, math. And the best way I can do that is just provide products for parents to prepare them, whether it's a book or online STEM camps or just video podcasting. My goal is to transform this community, especially those who are underrepresented. And the way to do that is to help parents understand their children's minds and basically develop them at different stages of their lives to be prepared for a successful STEM career. Thank you so much. That's why I'm here. Hey, it's the phenomenal STEMist. I've been setting an alarm all week long, and I had to set an alarm for this show because God knows I was knocked out. How y'all doing, everybody? I had to run real quick to get something, and I'm a little out of breath. This week shows me I'm just not in shape either. Hey, everyone. You can't hear me? Uh, can you guys hear me? I heard the audio is a little shifty. That might be my show opening audio too. Let me know if the sound is right. I think the sounds uh, looks like it's powerful. So let me know. Good to see you, Tanera. Good to see you, Ama. Good to see you, Toya. You can hear me. Good. Yeah, that was just the opening credits. The volume goes down a little bit, but my yeah, it's the opening. I gotta change that. But it's good to see you all watching. Those of you who came out, I have written some stuff so I can make sure that I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about my experience this weekend at Gillette, Wyoming's International Camporee for the Seventh Day Adventist Church for Pathfinder. So, first thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about. Well, let's pray first. Let's actually pray so the Lord will guide my tongue and my heart. Father, in the name of Jesus, thank you so much. I pray in a special way that you speak through me and help me to use my tongue right. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right. First, I want to talk about me. All right. I got a lot of shade this week about, I can't believe you stayed the whole time. A lot of people, my director included, could not believe like you shocked me, Maya. I couldn't believe that you were gonna camp. Or I had my friends, Maya, you were a Pathfinder. Well, you saw my opening picture. Listen, I'm true blue. That's me right there. I'm a Seventh Day Adventist kid. Third generation. My grandmother, my mother, my grandmother, my father. So both sides were converted into the Adventist faith when my parents were alive. So it's kind of third slash second. Both of my parents, West Indian background, Jamaica, West Indies, were born and children when their mothers were converted into the Adventist faith. And so I'm born, raised 46 years in this thing. And I've been a Pathfinder the whole time. Well, not the whole time. I was a Pathfinder at 10. Matter of fact, I was an adventurer at 9. And so they had just started the adventure club when I was 9. They had the Pathfinder club the whole time. And I remember as a kid watching the drum corps, watching the drill team as a kid saying, man, I can't wait to be 10. And I joined Pathfinders as soon as I was allowed. Shout out to Doris Shorey. May I shouldn't say rest in peace anymore. That's what I heard. So as she is resting in the Lord, she was one of the most powerful, instrumental people in my life because she was the director of the children's choir as well as the director of the Pathfinder Club. And I joined at 10 years old. And I stood a Pathfinder all the way till I was 17. Yeah, I went all the way to guide. I didn't do master guide. So I'm a Pathfinder True Blue. So all y'all Bammers out there talk asking me, you a Pathfinder? Feel free to comment in the comment section. I'm gonna see y'all. Yes, I was a Pathfinder when I got to of age. I left the Pathfinder Club. So I didn't stay through my adulthood. I will say that. Yeah, I don't have a Master Guard uniform. My uniform is the same picture size as the picture of that 13-year-old that you saw in the opening credits. Um so I went to let me see if I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah. Uh I went to several camps. Several camps. All right. So since I've been a Pathfinder since 10 to 17, I've gone to several camps. I went to one of the first predecessors of International Camporee. It was called Friendship Camporee. Friendship Camporee was the first or second. I think there was something in 84, kind of like Friendship, but Friendship was the hardcore first slash kind of like International. It was the general conferences. They had all the unions. So just those of you who are not Adventists, or don't know the Adventist church that well because you haven't been in the faith that long. The conference is a world church. We're a world church called the General Conference, and then we're divided into unions based on the part division, excuse me, based on where we are in the world. So I live in the North American division because I live in America. So Canada, America, right? North American division. While there's inter-American division, people in the West Indies and Spanish countries are in that division, and African, right? So I'm in that division, and then that division is divided into unions. So I live in the Southern Union. I was born and raised in the Atlantic Union, which is the East Coast, Northern East Coast. I'm from New York, right? So the Atlantic Union. Right now I live in Florida, so I also reside in the Southern Union. So I've been a Pathfinder in two unions. I've been a Pathfinder as a child, or I have an experience as a Pathfinder in a child in the Atlantic Union. And this is my first experience as an adult going on a Pathfinder trip in the Southern Union. Okay. So I want you to I gotta give you some background. That I've been on several camping trips. Most of Friendship was an NAD maybe, where all the unions got together and went camping. Matter of fact, I think it was General Conference because there were people from Jamaica there. There were people from different countries there. So we were trying to include. Friendship was the first international, in my opinion, camporee. But then came, Colorado. Then came, other camporees that involved international people. I didn't go to Oshkosh. I want to give you a background on me. So I didn't experience Oshkosh. I experienced Friendship. By the time Oshkosh came around, I was too grown for Pathfinders. Shout out to y'all, right? So I don't know what Oshkosh was like, but I know what friendship was like, and I've gone to several union, meaning camporees amongst just the Atlantic Union. I've been to several camporees amongst the conference. I was a part of the Northeastern Conference. That's a regional conference within the union. I've been to several camporees, right? And so I've camped out quite a bit, you know. And what I would say that this was the roughest experience. I will say this is has been the roughest experience. But I have to also say that I'm an adult compared to a child. Like, so now I want to talk about demographics. I want to talk about my club. Um, my club. Okay, so here's the demographics of my club. So I go to Patmos Chapel Seventh Day Adventist Church. When I was a kid, I was a part of Jamaica. Shout out to Jamaica Seventh Day Adventist Church Royal Crown Pathfinder Club. That's what I grew up with. Both of them were two big churches. Both of them were two big churches. Both of them were well funded churches. Meaning Sister Shori would like make sure people would push that we go and get the equipment we need and things like that. Patmos, we had 44 people that went, and we were well funded. How I know? Because I was funding it, and I know how much I put out, and I know that there were several people sponsoring and putting out money. And shout out to the Pathfinder leadership. They were doing car washes from day one. They were doing fundraising from day one. See, this Camporee International is a 5-year plan. Like, we know we're going to International Camporee like we're going to General Conference. Every 5 years, we go to General Conference. For instance, next year is General Conference. I will be going. I'm taking the summer off, and I will be going to General Conference, which is basically the world church coming together. I can't remember where they're going to be this year. I think it's Indianapolis or something like that. We're all going. Me and my mom are going to go. There are going to be a whole bunch of Adventists coming from around the world. We're going to General Conference. We call it GC. I'm Adventist. I've been to General Conference before. My mother has been there 3 times. You feel me? Like, we Adventists in this house, right? Pathfinders, same concept. Every 5 years, the whole world gets together. Okay, so General Conference is in Missouri this year. Uh, we've known from 2019. So I'm hearing two different Minneapolis. I don't know where it's gonna be, but we're gonna get a ticket to go. That's a good point. Look. Next year, General Conference is is St. Louis, mommy. So it's Missouri. But look, we've known for 5 years we go into GC, but even like it's not in my top of my mind. It's not on top of mind right now, even though we've made a decision 5 years ago. That's that. I want you to see that. I want you to see that. So our club has been preparing to go for years. Our club has been buying and purchasing things for years. Our club has been planning for years. And I will say that if our club has been doing that, I would hope that the conferences were doing that. I would hope that the divisions were doing that, right? All the youth directors at multiple stages should be planning for 5 years in advance. And I feel that they have in the past, since everybody's talking about how Oshkosh was so good, right? I've been hearing about Oshkosh for a long time. And I said, okay, and I heard 5 years ago that they're moving from Oshkosh and going to Gillette. I remember that so much so I thought they went to Gillette last time. I thought this was the second time around. That's how much I've heard about the word Gillette, right? Um, more demographics. More demographics. My club, as with Jamaica Royal Clown, if I remember, had a lot of young men. A lot of young men. I want you to consider demographics. I had shout out to the Boyces, Sister Boyce. She's resting in Jesus. She had 7 kids, and 6 of them were in America. They were all in their teens, and out of the 6 of them, 4 boys. 4 boys: Titus, Timothy, Curtis, Stanley, and they were tall. Shout out to Curtis; he was the shorter of the 4. They were tall, so they were big. And those we had Anthony. I can go back to the amount of teenage boys we had at Jamaica Royal Pathfinder Club, and when I look at my 44 this weekend, we had a lot of young men, big young men, right? 44 people, 22 kids. So it was half adults, half teenagers mostly, very few children, mostly 16-year-olds and up. And of those teenagers, 15, 16-year-olds, of those teenagers, half of that 22, like 11 boys. Praise the Lord for that. That matters. Also, we had an experienced adult camper. Experienced adult campers. Even the visitors like me who came on the ride as an elder, as a chaplain. That was my associated name. I've been in Pathfinder since from 10 to 17. I know what it's like. I know what to do with Pathfinder. I know what to do. And everybody around me were in their 30s and 40s. And Sister Proctor, who was in her 90s, they knew. Sister Proctor was teaching us how to fold down tents. You know, understand? So this matters. All right. So it was a rough camporee, but I had an awesome time. I had a great time. But I have to consider who I was rolling with, and the experience that I was rolling with, and the demographics of who I was rolling with. All right, let's get to the storm. I'm not going to hate on people who complain the whole time, because what if they didn't have experienced campers? What if their campers were mostly women and children? Right? What if the campers that were there had no experience? Their story may be totally different than mine. All right? The storm. Okay, so there were 2 storms. The first night, oh Lord Jesus. I'm in the tent. So shout out to my church where we funded great tents. I mean, I was like, so when I grew up at Jamaica Royal Crown, we had one tent and we would put units in them. One counselor with 5 people, right? Craig, what's up? You watching? My homeboy Craig. He was a Pathfinder with me. So we had multiple units. Julianne Boyd, shout out to Julianne Boyd. She's been my counselor for all my years until I became a staff member, until I became a counselor at 15, 16, right? So for 5 years, Julianne Boyd, 5 or 6 years, Julianne Boyd, 5 years, I think, and 2 years I was a counselor, had my own unit. And so we would be in tents together. One tent. My tent, we had big tents, the middle area, then we had separate bedrooms. So it's basically a tent, but you can zip down. So my tent was me, Sister Proctor, and the Drew sisters. You don't know them if you didn't go to Pathfinder. So they had their own quarters. I had my own quarters. Sister Proctor had the main quarter. So we had our own areas in the tent. And that's how it was with all the kids. It was a sturdy tent. It was big tents, and they were sturdy. Shout out to Pat Miss Trapple for funding us. The first storm, I woke. Sister Proctor is 90 years old. I'm next to her. this is I have my own quarters, but I can hear her. I said, "You all right?" She's like, "I'm good." All right. If you want to know who she is, you could go to my Facebook page. I have a whole bunch of pictures. I have her with all her pins. It was a storm. It was just thunder. It was lightning. It was scary. It was hard rain, but it wasn't a lot of wind. Just a lot of rain and thunder and lightning. I was concerned about the lightning. Um, but we made it through. Like it settled in, but it led to the cancellation of many events the next day because it was going to rain in the daytime too. So I went, oh man, that sucked. But that was beyond our control. The storm was beyond our control. The second night, that was an experience because we knew a storm was going to come. I told Sister Proctor, "You want to?" She's like, "Nah, I'm out for danger." So she was like, "We rolling." So I said, "Well, I ain't making them believe." But the beautiful thing is, we had access to hotel rooms. Shout out to the funding that our church provided. We had access to, so if she wanted to leave, we could move her. She didn't want to go. Shout out to her spirit of wanting to stay. But that night it was crazy because the wind was moving. All right, this is out of our control. The wind was moving, so I'm feeling the tent feel like it's about to lift. So I literally grabbed one side of it and just held the doorway down, the zip doorway down, which is to separate my quarters from Sister Proctor. I just held that door down because I swore that thing was gonna lift up. It was an experience, y'all. It was an experience outside of my control, but it was one nonetheless. And I heard the screams. I heard the screams around me. Not necessarily of my pathfinders, but the distant ones. The distant ones. I was so concerned. But shout out to the young men. Because what happened was I have a nice tent where it's like has a sunroof so if it gets real hot, we can take off the cover and there's like a sunroof. But then they put a covering over it's mesh. It's mesh like a sunroof. It's cover over it. So when rain comes, you can't come through the tent. But what happened was the wind was so strong it blew black the cover a little bit. So there was openings where there was mesh and the rain was coming in my tent. I had an air mattress. I had a list that was given to me by the leadership. And one of it was I was allowed to have an air mattress and I could have full size, not knowing that the full size would take up my whole room. If I was talking about Maya's room is the air mattress. But guess what? The air mattress took the water. Half of the air mattress took the water. So none of the water went into my tent, into my clothes. Praise the Lord. I didn't get any damage to my clothes because it got into the air mattress. But shortly when the storm started to subside, it was still raining, but the violent wind started to subside. Howard Smith, which was one of the men of our group, galvanized. I mean, yo, he was shirtless. He ran out, let's go, and he like gathered all the men. We had extra stakes that are hardcore red stakes, and those boys covered. I just saw a image just take my rafter and cover it back to stop the rain from coming in my tent. I swore it was an angel at first. I swear it's an angel. I said the Lord just sent his angel to cover me. Next thing I know, I just hear boys just coming from everywhere, hammering down our tents, securing our tents in the rain. It's like I could see the Boyces. I could see Craig. I could see Anthony and them doing the same. I could see Raymond Buckner getting all the boys, fly out there, and they just secured it even more. They secured it even more down. We had water damage, a little bit of water damage because of some of the winds. but we did not lose our tents. We were in there. It's funny. I heard Sister Proctor talking to her son saying, "Did they say that for y'all to get to the shelter?" I'm like, no. So they wasn't told to us until like I guess 5 minutes. I'm hearing before we got to run, but we couldn't leave. Like this area is massive. I'm gonna talk about it. Like where is the shelter? So we just hunkered down. We did not hear any information about moving to shelters. Yeah, Sean, those well disciplined teenage boys. I want to like we had a grip of them. Tall ones, big ones. We had a grip of them. Yeah, God bless them. God is so good. It wasn't an angel. It wasn't an angel, right? Yeah, it wasn't. It was one of those teenage boys that did it. It was one of those teenage boys that did it. Hallelujah. All right. So, um, well, so what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. But anyway, so they galvanized each other and really secured us. They secured us and I was really really appreciative of that. All right, so it's over. I'm hearing screams, I'm hearing whatever, but it subsides and we come out of the tent and our camp is secure. Now in my mind, I'm like I'm the chaplain. I'm the chaplain. I said, "What, Lord? What should I do? Should I pray?" And I'm always a fan of not over spiritualizing stuff. So I said, "Nah, I'm gonna let them do their thing." I watched how Howard was dealing with those boys. I let them do their thing. I didn't stop them. Some people went and gathered together to sing and praise and sing songs. I didn't do that. I needed them to sit with that. I didn't want to interrupt them doing the work that Howard felt strongly for them to accomplish. So there was a question. There was a question. What union were you with? Ours was Columbia. It was close to the buildings in question, so that probably is why we got the evacuation message. Absolutely, we were with Southern Union, and so the massive space. We're all the way on the Southern was sent all the way to the back. We are the largest union I heard, and so we had the back. We were all the way back there. We didn't hear jack squat. We didn't hear evacuation messages. We didn't hear nothing. But I heard some got evacuation messages left. But since their bodies, I don't know this is I'm only going to talk about my experience for the most part and what I've heard. When I say what I've heard, that's what I've heard. It's not what I've seen myself. But I heard some people who left their tents when they got back, the tents were taken away because they weren't necessarily secured, or I don't know. I'm not going to make any judgments as to what happened, but we hunkered down for both storms, and our bodies were in the tent, and we further secured it with our young men. But we did not hear any evacuation message. Toya, we're talking about the communication. I'm gonna talk about that. I'm gonna talk about that. So no, I didn't hear anything. There was an issue with communication. I will say that. I will agree with that. Um, but what it did was it brought us closer. How do I say this? So I did not interrupt the young men from doing their thing. I let them do their thing. I didn't want to over spiritualize anything. And the next day, I felt impressed to have a debriefing. We had worship in the morning. Shout out to the conference officials. We every 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm a part of Southeastern Conference. We had flag raising at 6 a.m. All the Pathfinders were required to be there. Conference officials were there. I'm talking about youth director. I'm talking about executive secretary. I'm talking about the president of our conference. All, like high level officials were present, right? Um, the youth director and the head of Pathfinders, I think Grandma G, they call her. I'm not a part of Southeastern. This is my first experience with Southeastern Conference, so I'll say that. But we were constantly informed in the mornings. I believe they were in connection with our director, and our director was in constant communication with the staff. As much as he knew, we knew. As much as he got from them, you know. Um, so that's where we got together. We had worship there. So when we came back, I said, while we're waiting for breakfast, I don't want to just have a worship. Other people were singing and doing all the things. I wanted to talk. And a lot of time, as some of us, we tend to want to just worship our way through, and sometimes we gotta worship our way through our hearts. God dwells in our hearts emotions. So I basically had a debriefing session with the Pathfinders. We got basically their chairs, and we were all in a circle, and I sat them and we all talked one by one. How do you feel? How do you feel? You don't have to feel happy. You don't have to feel sad. You don't have to feel anything. You just tell me how you feel. You could be angry, sad, great. Majority of them, and maybe it's because they heard others say it, majority of them were so grateful. I am so grateful to God. I'm so grateful we made it. I'm so grateful, grateful. That's all for the most part. Then there was one that were angry. They said, I ain't saying nothing. They were angry. So they didn't say anything because they were angry. Then there was like ones that were in shock and denial. They're like, well, we were just joking in the tents, laughing together, getting us through. So they were using humor and comedy to get through. That's what I heard from my Pathfinders. Young people they don't really talk how they feel negatively that much. They just are gonna just look at the bright side of things a lot, and just they were just happy they made it. The adults, I focused on how proud I was of those boys. And the kids were like, I felt like we were a family, man. We stuck together. We made sure like we were actually connected through this thing. Now, I'm talking about what I went through. I want to be clear. And so, and I want you to remember, we didn't get ramsacked the way others got ransacked because of what I had said earlier. So to us, we made it, we survived it, pretty well. So it connected us. It actually connected us and got stronger. So I said to them, I said, it's okay to feel negative feelings, because one of the Pathfinders was like, does it have to be positive? Because after a while, people started saying, I'm so grateful for it. So does it have to? I said, no, it could be negative. You could be angry, you could be sad, you could be whatever. And I said, if you're angry, go to God for value. He cares about you. If you're sad, shout out to Anita Phillips. I'm only doing what I learned about I'm dealing with my own emotions. I'm reading this book called The Garden Within of the Heart. I'm just taking what I learned in my life, and I'm not a therapist. I'm not a chaplain, but I knew we needed to debrief it. I knew we couldn't just wash over it. We needed to talk about our feelings. So if you're angry, go to God for value. He cares. If you're sad, go to God for connection. Go to others for connection. God is present. If you are scared, go to God for safety. Many of them talked about how scared they were the night, but how grateful they survived it in the morning. Let's see what people have to say before I move on. Yeah, because we were close to the building, we were able to hear it. Craig, you were out there, man. I missed you, man. I didn't know you were out there. Yeah, we didn't hear anything. Darian says, I walked to Southern on Sabbath morning to visit and pray with a friend, and it was a trek. Talk about, I'm coming. It's gonna be a long conversation, but I'm gonna try to make it less than an hour. Make it an hour. We're gonna get there. Yeah, children
express their resilience in different ways. The key thing is you gotta get them to express it. Sometimes we as religious folk want to praise our way through and sing songs, and nah, we ain't sing no songs. We ain't sing no. We sang a couple of songs. Shout out to sometimes in those worships. I don't think we should. We had people singing hymns for worship. These kids don't know these hymns. And they were singing all four standards. They only did it one time, but I'm like, yo, connect with your young people. Connect with when I try to get kids to sing. We sang like one song to close the Sabbath yesterday, and that was the song that they wanted to sing, the song that they know. That's how you deal with young people. You don't do what they're supposed to know the four stanzas of hymns, so we gonna sing hymns. That's crazy. But some people were like praising their way through, and I give them that. But I praised God. I praised God in a different way when it came to something traumatic. You gotta have people acknowledge feelings. That's right, Tanera. You gotta debrief them. So if you didn't do it, I did it immediately. I did it the morning after, and I really really believe, praise God, that it totally our spirits were on key the whole time. We knew what to do to cope, right? It's not about not having the feelings. It's about what do you do to cope? How do you cope positively with the feelings? What did you do? You go to God in prayer for whatever to fight against those feelings that you have. If you are scared, you ask God for protection. He does that. If you are angry, you say, God, I'm angry that you allowed water to come and ransack my tent. You don't care about me. God, I need you to come through and show me that you care about me. Go to God in prayer about that feeling. If you are sad and depressed, you say, God, I need someone close. I need to hug somebody. I need you present. I need to feel your presence. And when you ask God to do those things, He will come and do those things and buoy up your spirit. That's what He did for us. So our spirits were on a high, even in spite of things that were going on negatively around me. What else? What else? Okay. The health hazard. The health hazard. The bathrooms and the showers. So what I will say about the showers, I told you I've been doing this thing since 10 years old. That's 36 years. 36 years I've been doing this thing. And I will say it's the best showers that I had. I love the showers. Shout out to the showers. It's the best shower. Now, here's the thing. Other people had horrible experience with the shower, but this is the thing about my experience. I've been doing this thing a long time, and showers were always cold and wimpy pressure. And amongst everybody, I'm very private. I don't like just people to see my body, strangers to see my body. So I knew from that age that I had to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning. So what I learned from the past, I did here. I woke up at 4 a.m. MVP number one was this. I made sure this thing got charged. This is my Droid phone. I made sure this thing got MVP number one. I made sure this thing got charged, and it was my alarm. 4 a.m. I woke up at 4 a.m. and the showers are clean. They had just gotten cleaned then from the night before, except for one night, and it was like people were just putting all kinds of things everywhere. Behavior of people. I can't control the storm. I can't control people's behavior. Tonight is about what you can control, what you can't. I can't control the storm. One night it was a mess. People were just leaving everything everywhere. But the rest of the nights they got it together and they were clean by 4. And the gates were locked, so I snuck through the gate. I don't care. I got up 4 a.m. and I might have broken some of the rules to go, but the showers were open, but the gates were locked. But there's open ways to the gates, so I just slipped through the gates. And I had a hot shower, lots of pressure. So the showers were great for me. Now, people who did not adapt to the crowds, it might have been really bad for them because they waited. They didn't want to wake up 4 a.m. So they waited and they went with the crowds, and you know that could really suck. But that's no different than any Pathfinder camporee. They could have had more areas where you could put stuff down. Craig, friendship, we were outside showering. Yes, and it was cold. It was cold water. So to me, the showers were really, really, really good, especially if you went early, especially if you adapted. The um porta potties. The porta potties sucked. Um and here's why the porta potties sucked. Here's what I think. Number one, there weren't enough of them. That was the responsibility of the porta potty company. Okay. Number two, there was bad behavior of people. Um, why do I say this? Because when I went here, I'm talking about MVPs. So this is my MVP number two. Yeah, I don't know about this. This is so this was provided for us. MVP number two. MVP number two. Something as simple like well thought out. The director's wealth. I went in that thing. I'm seeing stuff on the seat. So it looked like people were just aiming and missing because they did not want to sit on the seat. Right? So they just but when I opened the door, I could see stuff. I could see that they aimed and missed. People aimed and missed on the ground. Like, come on, people. MVP number three. They told me to MVP number three, and I had a value pack. I wiped the seat down. It was partially because of poor behavior. Um, it was bad. So what did I do? I adapted. I made sure I had this on so I can see what it looked like, so I could clean around where I was. I'm a biologist, so that kind of stuff doesn't freak me out the way it might freak other people out, right? I'm a biologist. It was unhealthy for sure, but I made sure I could clean the area I had, and then I made sure to adapt and make sure I found areas where they weren't as bad as where it was. There were some areas that were worse than the other, and I made my way over to other conferences. I made my way over to other conferences, porta potties, and they weren't people weren't aiming and missing, and that might be a cultural thing. We might have to think about. We were we're taught don't sit, right? Other cultures sit. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be straight up. I sat. I cleaned. I cleaned and sat. So when you clean and sit, you don't miss, and so the stuff is not all over the place. And so I really believe some areas where had less people and less aiming. That's where I roll. I adapted. So I didn't have the worst experience as others where it was just bad because they stayed in the mess. Shout out about stay in the mess. How is it that they weren't cleaned every 3 hours? I was told. This is not this. I don't know. I'm not in leadership. I was told that those companies were supposed to clean those thing out every 3 hours, and they didn't. They didn't. So it gathered worse. You understand? Craig says, so true about the cultural issue. Yeah. And I really believe that. In certain cultures, I believe they just like, listen, I'm gonna deal with it. It's just a porta potty. It's just a porta potty. I know it smells nice, but let me sit down and do my business. While others like, oh my god, and just aiming and missing. Come on, people. Come on, I just got it. I just wiped it down. I chose an area that was clean already and wiped it already down, so I didn't contribute to the aiming and missing. That's what I did. I don't know about other people. It should have been cleaned multiple times. And that, in my opinion, is the responsibility of the business that was contracted. And I'm not going to go too far with that because I have other things to say. But I don't think the business that was contracted did their due diligence. I don't think the business that was contracted did their due diligence. And it was 60,000 people there. And some people were saying they felt it was more. It was 60,000 people there, and I don't think it was they did their due diligence for 60,000 people. Even if it was 50,000 people, they didn't do their due diligence for the 60. Right? If there was 80, that's exponentially worse, but there wasn't enough for the 60. I don't believe they took us seriously when we say we bring in 60,000 people here, and we need around the clock cleaning, right? Around the clock cleaning. That I don't believe that was done, and that's not the responsibility of my church. That was the responsibility of the company that my church contracted. Craig said the setup caused the lack of cleaning. The company couldn't get into the small lanes. Oh, that okay, Craig. So I'm glad you're giving me different perspective. Okay, I'm glad you. So the way it was arranged, they couldn't get into the small the kind of equipment needed to clean couldn't move through the small lanes. Okay, okay, okay. Well, then there needed to be communication when they set up the place. Something was missing in the communication for the amount and the cleaning. Towards the end, they brought them out to the bigger roads because Craig. Maybe that's what happened with my conference. Maybe my conference had a small road that they couldn't get to because the few couple days in, those porta potties were removed. I thought they were removed because it's like this is just too bad. Like, but the reason why they were removed so they could put them in areas where the company could constantly get to them. Glad to hear your um glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. The setup of where the porta potties were originally off. Even still, Craig, I still think that's the responsibility of the complex and the company, right? That's just me. I don't know. That's just me, and I don't feel. Let me stick a pin that the social media bared that down. I felt like the social media, meaning our community, just went in on us. Like went in on the organization, the Pathfinder organization, rather than going in on the company that set it all up. That's okay. Number 5. I'll get back to that later. So the health, it was a health hazard, and I believe that it was because of the health hazard that we cut everything short. I know a storm was coming. I didn't hear anything about because people stayed back, and I didn't hear anything about it being that bad. I think that it was getting to a point where it was getting rainy, cold nights after a while, and a combination with the amount of bacteria that could be around could lead to danger. And I feel like it was a combination of those two things that we say let's cut it short. So do I agree that it was getting bad with the porta potties? Absolutely. um but I adapted. This is what I did. I adapted instead of just complaining. I adapted. It's important to complain to the right source, talk to the people. But I just adapted. That's how I made it through the porta potty situation. Number 5. And I taught my people to adapt. My homegirls, after a while, by Wednesday, I, my homegirls were beating me to the shower. My teenage girls were beating me to the shower. Some stayed, some still stayed back. They couldn't get up. But some followed my lead. Number 5. Um the program was amazing. The program was amazing. I made sure that I was there every night. So I stayed and I got good seats, meaning I left early. Um I, I made the program. Shout out to Damian Chandler. He was so up. His sermons were so uplifting. The message of Moses was. I encourage you guys to watch it. Um, the lights. It was a stage play. I remember that with Friendship. I remember Friendship was like it was really really good. We had a theme song. We are the colors of the world. I was 10 when that happened. I still remember 10, 11. So we are the people of his red and yellow, black and remember that, Craig? I remember it like yesterday. And I said, I want the kids to remember this. Like the experience of being around a massive amount of people, watching a theatric event that was really set up well. That to me, it was better than Friendship. The problem was, it was inaccessible. It was so far away. So many of my Pathfinders, they tried to trek it the first night and it rained, right? And they gave up too soon. The first night, what happened was me and my friend, we took a car and went to Mount Rushmore. This is talking about different experiences. She took her daughters and we went to Mount Rushmore. So we were out all day. That was Wednesday. So we got back and we just parked after the rain. We used our car and parked after the rain. And we actually just rolled up to the front and just sat up in the front. We were late, but we squeezed ourselves in. We broke some rules. She broke the rule. I just followed her. And we squeezed our. I got a front row seat to the first night because I had a car. I had the money to rent a car to go out and see Mount Rushmore. I had an amazing time, but I also understand that I had different things going on with me. This is so I don't want to be inauthentic and like, oh, it was a great. I hate when people do this. It was great and they cheesing, great experience. I'm like, no, it was rough. It was rough. Don't ignore the people's sadness. Ignore the people's anger. It was rough. But I was able to adapt through it because I also had means to adapt through it. So I saw the first night. Well, my people who did not go to Mount Rushmore with me, they got discouraged by the rain. And they went back. And then they tried to wait for shuttle buses. And the shuttle buses were all off in the beginning. It managed to get themselves better at the end of the thing, but you got to be on point from the start. Especially for the theatric event, and people want to be able to, because I could stay home. People talking right now, Sean and Connie talking about, we watched it all. I could have stayed home and watched it on the screen. I wanted to be a part of the people. So they stayed back and did the screen, but then people were standing with the screen. It just wasn't as accessible because it was so far away to walk to it. And the way we were set up, we weren't set up with that knowledge. We had well planned. I mean, we had color coded schedules. Like I knew what color I was wearing each day. I was wearing red one day, green another day, purple another day, and I knew what time it was. But the way they scheduled dinner, it didn't give a lot of people time to walk. You had to leave from 5:30, so I had to adapt. Me and mines adapted, so I was able to see every play because I was like. And the last night, I told the kids because they really wanted to see it. I said, "Well, I'm leaving at 5:30, and you either rolling with me at 5:30 or not." And when 5:30 came, guess what? Maya was walking down the street, and they were running behind. You understand? Like you had to have your planned schedule, right? That was critical. Shout out to Cherie, right, and Sharita who did that. Amazing, right? But then when you see that things aren't matching, you gotta flip it. you can't necessarily just keep going to it because you'll miss out. So at 5:30, I'm walking. I'm out over the 3 mile hike. We got there around 6ish, 6:15, right? I wouldn't say 3 miles though. It could be three though, but because I usually take 45 minutes to walk two, and it was about that. So it was like two miles. I would say 2.5 maybe miles every night, and that if that can be discouraging to some people, so they stayed back and watched. But the key thing is they had screens at two places, two TVs, two screens. But sometimes people were standing and blocking, so it discouraged some of the Pathfinders. They didn't want to go and see it. But the ones that really, really wanted to see it, which was 12 of them, teenagers, they rolled with me. We rolled together on the last one, and it was amazing, amazing, amazing show. Amazing, amazing show. But there were so many things going on that we just didn't have access to, man. Like, they told me to download the app with a map on it, but my app didn't work. I couldn't see the map. I didn't know there were things off campus. They were all, when we were watching the show, they were showing volleyball and flag football, and my boys were like, "Man, we didn't get to go to any of that." They were frustrated because there were so much things available, but just not easily accessible. So many things available, but it was just not as accessible. I'm being straight up with you. It was difficult my app wasn't working, and we have big visions about we're gonna have an app. But I mean, dude, I have Metro. I have money. I have money, and I have Metro PCS. I didn't have internet access. I couldn't get internet at all. You think the people for international could the app? You think you should have proper signage all over the place. You see how Disney World, everywhere we walk, where I want to go, or even the zoo. I went to the zoo 2 weeks ago. Oh, I want to see the elephant. The elephant is here. The this is here. The that is here. Have proper signage all over this massive campground. You can't depend for a physical map or an app map. Like, I mean, it was just difficult to access all these great things. And there were abundance of great things. And we had to really, Cherie said, okay, it's Thursday. We have to sit and make sure we get these kids in. And that's what we did. We had to fight it. Other adults said, you know what, I just give up. I don't care. That y'all could do that. But that will pass on to your kids and they'll just have a horrible we were like, we have to adapt to the struggle. We could be pissed, or we can adapt and make sure these kids have at least something. So one day we finally got into the center. We got to them to the Advent Health exhibit. We got them a couple of honors. We got them pins. We got them in this pin fanatic. That's the adults who've been through friendship. We just know what the experience needed to be. We experienced it ourselves and we know what it needed to be. So we had to force these kids to experience just a little of it. So then Isaiah was getting in this pin. Just to let you know, Isaiah was my angel. Isaiah Pierre, this is the director's son. He was the one that pulled. He was getting in this pin thing. Like, I mean, we had to get him into it. We had to force it in, but it was very difficult to. It's like, oh, there's an ice cream social at this tent. Like, well, where's the tent? How do I get to the tent? Where's the signage was terrible. I really, that was my most frustrating experience. I didn't know where to go to get experience. I had to fight through it and got something, but not to the level of what I saw could have been. The rock climbing, the pool, the water park, the this, the that, the this. There was a lot of stuff. People talking about this camporee is not the standard. Let me tell you, there is a lot of things going on. A lot. You just had to get access to it. You had to have really great planning on making sure it happened ahead of time. And if you're not a good, if you can't do that, you'll just sit back and do nothing. And I think a lot of people got stuck with that. Let's see what people have to say. Eon, I was blessed to have a golf cart because of my role as a camperee this year. And it was still a challenge to assist campers when I had time to, when not on assignment. Yeah, Ian. Sometimes I would put my finger out, like, can I get a ride? I ain't lying. Ian said signs would be great for this. Signs. If you want to have a Disney World experience, Disney World has a whole bunch of signs everywhere. They have maps everywhere. They have physical maps everywhere. They have signs everywhere. I know we want to be visionary and technologically advanced, but that may not work for everybody. So at least have physical signs, not just they had outside physical signs. So after a while, I just started going out on the corners because I knew that I'm at H, southeastern. I mean, Allegheny East is at D. Like I literally walked on the outside to get to the places because the inside had no signage, and that's what I think that would be my most critical thing that I didn't like. Um, we must adapt. We must adapt. Yeah, gotta adapt. You could complain and be mad, or you could adapt and be resilient. I'm not talking about the people who got their tents ransacked and had nothing. I'm not talking about you. Like this is a totally different situation. I didn't have that experience, so I don't know how it would feel if I didn't have nothing because my whole thing got ruined. Totally different experience. So I want to be clear with that, right? Everybody had their own different experiences, and there's some things that you can't adapt to. But I believe that majority of us could adapt. The majority of us could adapt. The majority of us did not have our tents ransacked and whatever. So that's who I'm talking about. The majority of us that are on social media, matter of fact, weren't even there. You weren't even there, right? So like, especially you, be careful about because let me get to that. I'll get to that later. Number 6. I got 7 things to say. I'm over time, but just I see y'all hanging with me. I got 7 things to say. Number 6. Eon says, I was at Southern Union. It was far. That's where I was. We were Southeastern. It was far, bro. It was far, bro. We were the farthest away. So my people were frustrated that it couldn't, but I made sure that whoever wanted to come the last night, I'm talking about the Pathfinders. I wanted the Pathfinders to experience the theatrical event. I experienced all 3 and all acts, and it was amazing. It was encouraging. And the story of Moses was just pivotal with all these complaining Israelites around me on social media, right? Oh, we should be going back to Oshkosh. How? Wow. If have you brought us out here to kill us, Moses? I mean, it matched. It just totally matched. But anyway, I digress. It was far. I'm trying to be balanced. I'm trying to talk about both sides. There's some things that you should be angry about, but then there's some things that we went overboard with. Tanera's like, I wasn't there, thank God. Oh, well, you missed out because I had a great time. I had a great time. Tanera, yeah, because in her mind it was the worst thing ever, and I'm trying to tell you, it just wasn't. There were difficulties, there were challenges, there were bad things. And I think I'm being balanced in things that could be properly changed. I told my mom because she was hearing a lot of horror stories. So she was calling. I'm like, Mom, it's bad, but it's not that bad. I can't explain it. It's bad, Mom, but it's not that bad. That's the phrase that I used. Number 6, the need for more C's. I'm on the discus. I'm all about the disc assessment. The D is the pilot. Shout out to maybe y'all need to talk. The people organizing, y'all need to consult with Eric Thomas. Get some. The D is the pilot. The I is the flight attendant. That's the happy-go-lucky person. The S is the supporter. The C's are the air traffic controller. And I really, really believe as a church that we struggle with balance in teams. This is my opinion, and this is based on my experience with the church. I feel like a lot of ministry leaders, men of God, are a lot of them are D's. They're pilots. They're visionary. Vision. I could see that. I could see listen, I was there. I see the layout. I see the stuff. I see the vision, y'all. It was an amazing vision. It was an amazing vision, right? Oh, they have pools over here. They have airport. They have this over here. Mount Rushmore's over here that we could go to if you want. And I took advantage of it. I see the vision, guys. Me, I know how to strategically plan and get with people like that to make sure I experience as much as I can. But you can tell, I feel like the I's and the T's, the I's and the T's. What am I my I's and T's? Dot the I's, cross the T's. Um, where were they? Where were the people that could see? Oh, hold up. These roads are too narrow. These roads are too. We can't get the cleaning people. Those are C's. Those are the air traffic controllers. And I've found that D's and C's don't get along, especially in ministry, because you're so visionary. You're men of God. You feel like God is God is speaking to you. You know, like God has spoken to me. We must go. You know, and the air traffic controller like, but have you considered this? You don't have faith, negative Nancy. You know, and I see that in the church all the time, and I'm annoyed with it because when you gotta have people to dot the I's, cross the T's. I don't care how annoying they are. I don't care how impersonal they are. We need them because I like. Where were the people? Where were the air traffic controllers to say why weren't there any signs? We need signs all over the place. Like what? You know, like like those people don't need to be talking on social media later. Like, where were they? Or did they say it and they weren't listened to? I don't know. I see it happen all the time, though. I see it in history happen all the time where you have these people with big visions and the people who are air traffic controllers trying to manage the thing, and they get pushed aside as those as faithless, as negative Nancy's. I hope that's not the case, but I don't think the city was fully prepared. I was in a car. I rented a car, and the person who was driving the shuttle to take us to our car place so we can rent a car to go to Mount Rushmore, they said the rental car company they only knew about this 6 months ago. I said 6 months ago we planned this thing 5 years in advance. So your people didn't talk to your they I don't believe the city. They didn't either didn't believe they didn't believe we were coming strong or whatever. But she said, this is what I experienced. This is what I experienced. She said they started preparing 6 months ago. Walmart built a whole super Walmart. We told them we were coming. This is not Adventist's fault. Like we made a contract 10 years. We told them this is a massive crowd. Either they didn't believe us, they didn't think it was that. I don't know. But for the lady to say that they were preparing 6 months in advance for something that we paid them 5 years ago, or we told them 5 years ago, I think that's a problem. And I think we need to consider that. You know, it may not all be on Adventists not crossing the I's and dotting the T's. Right? There was a communication disconnect. And it's not all our fault. That's what I was told, PJ, because originally it wasn't there. At first, they were like, you're going to have to ship from other Walmarts. That's what I heard. But then because of the massive investment that they saw, they invested into build that Walmart. So we've done Oshkosh multiple times. We've done Colorado Friendship. They've always planned this thing very well. Right? Like you think all of a sudden they don't all of a sudden there was a disconnect. There was some kind of disconnect. I don't know what it was, but there was a disconnect. In my opinion, I don't think the city was really prepared. And when I heard with my own ears that she said that company started to prepare 6 months ago, that tells me that's on them. There's a disconnect. Like, We've been talking about Gillette. I've been talking about Gillette for 5 years ago. That ain't on us. So my final thing, our culture, our culture, our culture is quick to criticize and not necessarily help. All these people I'm hearing all over the social media, I'm hearing that I got two people reach out to me other than my mama. One person DM me, he's like, y'all need anything? Y'all need any money? Me personally, I know our pastors reached out to the directors. I'm talking about Maya personally, right? You need any money? I'm hearing they need stuff. You need stuff before I start giving to other people. You want, because she's from my conference from my church. I said, we good. Go ahead and give to other people, right? But the massive amount of people who they ain't quick to criticize, not to help. We're itching to blame ourselves. We're itching to blame ourselves. I don't know what is it about our culture as Adventists, but we rather go on us, turn on us. We turn on us. We supposed to be a family. We turn on us and blame us publicly without even knowing the facts. Me, I'm all about the porta potty company. I'm all about the city. And yes, I want to hold us accountable for our strategic planning failures and how we need to be better at balancing our teams. And we need to be better at listening to air traffic controllers. We need to be better communicators. We might need, as pastors, to submit to lay people who are really good at air traffic control. Stop being all high-minded all about God when you don't have a good planning acumen, and start submitting to people who have good planning acumen. Okay, I could work on that. That's something I can agree on, but that shouldn't be the majority of the social media blaming us. I feel like we were extremely nostalgic and looking back to our experiences and wanting to experience what we had, and we were forgetting the kids were experiencing their own experience. Just like Craig said, our showers were cold. We were cold. We could have got sick from bathing in cold water. I didn't demand that the conference apologize because you should have had hot water for, like, there's some experiences that are in the camping culture. Like, that's how it is. I've said the health hazard needed to be dealt with. Absolutely. But remember, the kids are going through their experience, and we can't be so nostalgic that we're angry that we are. I think a lot of adults came. I saw some camps that had more adults than children, and they were pissed that they didn't have the experience that they had at Oshkosh, at Gillette, and they're actually putting their negative experiencing on their kids. I think that was because the kids are experiencing, man, remember this and remember that. You got to let the kids experience even the negative. So there's a difference between an air traffic controller who is finding out the strategic plan and saying, hey, this is going to be a problem, man. This is going to be a problem. That person must be listened to. But then there's the negative Nancy's that just who there's, and I'm not talking about you, Tanera, because I feel like you have a right to be concerned about the children. And there were some conferences that were worse off than others, and they were ransacked, and they needed communication, and you made sure you demanded that. So I'm not. That's, to me, that's air traffic control. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not. So Tanera, you're air traffic, but so there's important for air traffic controllers. But then there's some negative, nasty Nancy's who wait for something in the Adventist church to go wrong, and then they jump on it, and they just start just being negative Nancy's, and they need to be repelled. They need to be discarded. I don't want to hear from people like that because they don't have anything positive. They've been hurt probably from the Adventist church. I don't know, but in my mind, in our culture, I'm like, listen, it's it's us, it's not them. So if you Adventist, be Adventist. If you don't want to be Adventist, stop being Adventist. Right? Then throw stones at us from the outside. But don't be from inside with your negative, nasty Nancy self waiting for something bad to happen so that you can publish it all on social media and denigrate us when it's not the whole story. 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 When it's not the Like either you're with us or you're not. You're with us or you're not, right? Hold us accountable. Have ideas. Be a part of the planning. Give all that stuff for sure. But don't be a negative, nasty Nancy. And I was just too through with it. All right. Woosah, woosah, woosah. Um. So my friend, one of my close friends, asked me how would I rate it. She thought it was a failure because they had to cancel. I mean, and they cancel on the Sabbath. Sabbath is the high and holy event, right? And we didn't have Sabbath, and we didn't have the fireworks show and all that stuff. So she's like, that's ultimate failure. I mean, right? And I could understand. I could understand that perspective. But I gave it a 7. So if you rate it from 0 to 10, how would you rate it? Would you rate it a 0? Like, I give it a 7. But I'm giving it from my perspective. Who said that? Ian, perspective is key. And I gave you, if those of you who came in late, come in the early part, I gave you a really good demographic of who I am, what my club was. Perspective is key here. You know, um, I gave it a 7. It was bad, but it wasn't that bad, and I adapted. I enjoyed it. I loved the Mount Rushmore experience. All of my club couldn't experience that. So, but that's on strategic planning for my club, maybe making sure there's more money to make sure that everybody can travel, because it would cost a lot more money to get the whole club out there. But we were able to take a few Pathfinders out there, right? Um, some people couldn't do it at all because they didn't have the resources to do that at all. So maybe instead of just being negative, finance that. Somebody asked, I think it was, who was that? Wycliffe? Let me go back. Um, Same location in 2029? Like, that's a question. I saw a wife. Would you go back and yeah, there it is. Would you go back and in 2029? And I said this was my first international, and it would be my last. And the reason why is because I'll be 51. I'm not in Pathfinders anymore. I wanted to experience international camporee, and I did. I don't need to. If I go back, it would be because Randy asked me to go. He liked my spirit. He was surprised. All my friends were surprised that I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm Royal Clown True Blue Tenera Royal Clown Pathfinder Club is life. I was well prepared from 10 years old to. I guess they didn't know that. They think because I don't let that BMW fool you. I'm like you know. So I already experienced. I really want to experience it, but he really viewed me as a gift. So if he wanted me to be there as a gift to the kids, I would. I think I would do an RV. Tanera was like, "Would you go back to the same place?" I don't like the I'm scared of the weather. I truly am scared of the weather. And they were like, this is the first time ever did this have ever happened. There have been a drought there, so it could be a God ordained experience to teach us something. I don't know, but I'm not feeling. We would have to have proper signage. We would have to do a lot things better for us to go. But Sister Proctor, who's in her 90s, she loved it. She loved it. She loved it more than Oshkosh. But Sister Proctor has a setup in her tent. Since she's in her 90s, they set her up. Her she didn't go to the porta potties. She didn't. There are things that we went through. She didn't have the experience because her sons, her family, they make sure her tent can do those things. So that's a perspective. She loved the layout. She said, I love the big massive. She said Oshkosh was too small. She loved it, whatever. But she also couldn't get all the way to the thing, I don't know. I feel like I'm worried about the weather. If I don't want to go through that experience again in terms of the weather. So I would do an RV. But yeah, I love the experience. So if I was a kid, I think I would do it again. That company over the toilets, glad to change. the change was made, the replacement was 1,000% better. The replacement, see, so they changed the company. See, so and back to my original point, I don't think we the people who are on social media did due diligence in condemning those behaviors, and I feel like we gave people an out. We condemn ourselves, and suppose we wanted to hold that company liable. Suppose we wanted to hold that company liable, and you out there talking bad about us all over social media. They could take everything you said and say, "Well, they weren't this, and they weren't organized, and they weren't." They could when in real time they were liable. We gotta be careful of how we condemn ourselves. You have a right to remain silent because anything that could you say could be held against you in a court of law, and especially if you weren't there. All right, so the kids were resilient. The kids were resilient, and when I look back at my feeling of camp, I'm closing here. We won't go past an hour and 30. I had the same feeling as a kid. Number one, the bonding experience was amazing. I remember that in Jamaica Royal Crown. The resilience that we had because we had our own struggles, but we were resilient. I remember the resilience from my young years. I had that same feeling now, right? Just people say, "Oh, it's not the like." I had the same feeling now. The competition. That's another thing. Patmos was well organized, so we placed our kids in competition. We put them in the drill team competition, and they won first place. We That's what Jamaica. We knew the competitions. We had the manpower, and we placed our kids who were. I know their hearts were beating because I remember when I did the color guard competition. I used to do the drill team competitions. Our hearts would be beating fast, and I was saying in the stands because we had the crew in the stands. I know their heart is beating real fast. I remember having to compete in front of all these people, but few clubs were a part of the competition. Few clubs put them kids in competition. But we did. Patmos did. And because of that, we got first place. And when we won first place for the drill team, I had the same feeling when Jamaica Royal Crown won first place for our drill team. We were yelling and screaming and shouting. I had the same feeling. My kids got to have the same feeling as me because we won. I had a Royal Crown. We won. We were winners. And Patmos Panthers, we won. If your kids didn't get that experience, if they didn't, they probably got bonding. They probably got resilience. Did they get that competition? Did they march in the parade? I think Southern Union is the only Pathfinder group that was able to create a parade and march. Like I had that experience as a kid, and my kids got that experience. And if yours didn't, then it was a struggle, you know. So, and I would understand if there was a lot of sadness if your kids didn't get to experience those things. And you have a right to feel sad and feel disappointed and 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 feel angry. Because if you didn't get those four, the bonding, the resilience, the competition, and the winning, right? And you were just all you got was the flood and the earthquake, not the earthquake, the hailstorm, the removal of the tent, the damage of the flood. You didn't get to do it. Then you have a right to feel angry and sad. So people need to make sure we process that. Don't say it was all gravy, but don't say it was all bad either. Yeah, life requires strategic planning. It requires balanced teams in which pilots who are visionary force themselves to listen to air traffic controllers. All right, I'm gonna stop here. See what people have to say, and I'm gonna close. It was an enjoyable conversation. I hope it was fair and balanced, as I promised. I hope it was fair and balanced, as I promised. The force of nature was a wild card. We don't have control over that. Yep. There's things I could not control. I could not control the nature, and I could not control people's bad behavior. So what do I do? I pray, adapt. I express my feelings to God, pray, and then adapt. You know, and I and strategically plan. Strategically plan daily challenges and action items and schedules. My club did that, you know. It will be the same location according to the schedule, according to the contract. It's two years. Yeah, it's like definitely an RV for that one. But what about the people who can't afford that? That's but that's life too. Like let's make it happen. Let's get that financial let's get that financial preparedness, financial literacy going on. Just to let you know, phenomenal STEMIS is all about uh uh making sure that we put ourselves in a position to be phenomenal, successful using STEM and appropriate finances. Yeah, yeah. Wyclef, trip insurance need to be considered, especially for international groups. Insurance should be mandatory moving forward. That's a good idea. That's a good point. That's a good point, Tanera. Mommy says not NEC. What do you mean not NEC? Ivy says they do have insurance. They do. So that's a good thought. That's a good thought to have, though. All right. I try to be as real as I can be. I really believe in being authentic, right? I really believe in be authentic, guys. Don't make it seem like it was all gravy, but don't make it seem that it was all bad either. It wasn't. It was. I had a great time, great experience. Sorry, missing you too, Craig. Yeah, man. One thing I said I was gonna put online when I had service because they had service at the main buildings. And it actually was a good thing not to have service. I was able to cleanse a lot. But I was sitting at the Oakwood table, and I saw a lot of people as I was sitting at the Oakwood table. I should have said, "Yo, I'm at the Oakwood table. Some come see me. I'll be out here. I'll be here for the day." I should have done that. So that's what I would do. I'd pick a spot, say what building I'm at, da, 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 and it's like, "Come see me. I'm here." Yeah. Craig says start putting $25 um away a month. That's $300 a year times 5 is 1,500 to start talking to your church leaders. Listen, I made sure I didn't do it from 5 years, but for the past 2 years, I said this is going to Pathfinders, and I saved I sent quite a bit of money, just giving a certain amount of money every month. Listen, I believe in this thing. I believe what Pathfinders did for my character. I talk about those boys rolling out, knocking out the amount of discipline. I have no trouble, no sexual trouble, no fondling, no. I have no behavioral issues with those kids. None. Zero. Those are good kids. And I'm telling you, Pathfinders, of course, parenting plays a role in it. My mother was a good parent. But Pathfinders created in something in me resilience that I can't explain. And I believe every kid should have that opportunity to experience it. So, yes, would I send kids? Would I go? Maybe not. Because I'm a type of one and done type person anyway. But I'd send. Yes, I would pay money again. Absolutely, and send a bunch of kids back. Absolutely, that's the question. Shout out to Gracie. Gracie was there with me. Her husband is the director of the club. Great analysis. It was difficult experience with circumstances, but positive spirits and adaptation is key. Thank you for investing in kids. Absolutely, absolutely, and I do it again. Yep. So would I pay for kids to go? Absolutely, absolutely, guys. I said I'm not going past a minute 30. I got 30 seconds. I am the phenomenal STEMist. Love you guys, and I love the Pathfinder Club. Good night, everybody.